All right, welcome to another edition of Soto Desperado Plays Skyrim. Playing a character called Magica. I almost got her taken care of. Got a little bit more to go, and I have some jewelry I have to make. And by the time I'm done, she'll be almost invulnerable, except that she will be vulnerable to magic because I don't have the resist magic spell. I keep trying to find it, and it just, doesn't really happen. Okay, so anyway, I have plenty of everything. And let's see. Now I found the video. This is going to be a short episode. I'm just going to work on the magic and stuff. Try to finish up creating the character, and then go from there. But got this guy. I don't know. I never played his videos before, but he doesn't look like he's in a good mood. It says 44-year-old man, existential crisis of life. His name is Rad Mage. And the description says, talking about what I've been thinking and about over the last week, work, my kids, refurnishing an iPad for my daughter, the economy, William Golding. I don't know if that's his real name or somebody else. Who's William Golding? He's the guy that wrote Lord of the Flies. Supposedly he was a horrible teacher. Lord of the Flies. Golding's experiences working with unruly boys as a teacher and his time as a combatant in World War II inspired Lord of the Flies. Wow. So it looks like he got a glimpse of human nature and put it on paper. Anyway, that's interesting. So we'll listen to this gentleman. I've never listened to him before, and we'll get started. And it's going to be a short episode because I don't want to. I got to do something in half an hour. So we have about half an hour, and it's about a 33-minute video. So here we go.
Hello, I'm David. And I guess this week I've sort of been thinking about a couple of different things. In my 20s, I moved to the Midwest. I was originally born and raised in California. I grew up in the Sierra Nevada foothills of California. And even at this point, I spent most of my life in California. Even though I'm 44 now, I will have been in the Midwest now for pretty close to 20 years. So I've been thinking about that this week, and I have two kids. My son is 9, and my daughter's 14 this year. And I've been thinking more with my daughter getting older. You can kind of see the change in her. Sort of like 1 through 9 or so are kind of like the play years. Kids really like their parents, like spending time around their parents. And as my daughter's gotten older, you could see like around 12 or so, she started developing more and more of a personality and kind of, for lack of a better word, attitude or whatnot. In the play years at that point were kind of over with. I mean, still obviously interact with her and do stuff, but it's not like, we're playing with toys, and she doesn't think I'm the greatest person in the world anymore at this point. She's a teenager that finds me embarrassing in front of her friends, and typical teenager kind of, I guess. But it kind of parallels, I guess, in a way, not only, having gone through the experience myself as growing up and being a teenager and having kind of that initial existential crisis of self, or whatever you want to call it. Who am I? What am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? And kind of seeing some of the same things, but now reflected in your own children as they start to grow up and get older, is kind of a weird experience, I guess. But I try and appreciate the time, I suppose, especially more so now. Initially, my ex-wife and I went through a divorce, which started in 2018 and ended in 2019. And initially, I only got 3 weeks of parenting time with my kids in the summers. Now, I have half the summers, de facto, with my kids. And I appreciate having that time, being able to spend time with my kids, do things more, and just have the small interactions throughout the day of, sharing meals, doing stuff together, going for walks, or going to the park, playing video games, or talking about music or books, which I kind of bring that stuff up because I had refurbished this iPod here earlier last month, and there's nothing too particularly spectacular about it. All I really replaced in the one I'm using here is the hard drive got replaced with an iFlash adapter and an SD card, and I swapped out the battery. Everything else is the original shell and faceplate and everything. The video screen. But my daughter, my daughter and son had both been here, but my daughter took a liking to the iPod and wanted one of her own. So we found her an old used iPod as well, but she wanted everything replaced on it. So I swapped out the faceplate and the back plate. She wanted a red one. An iPod I had found at this antique store, the screen on it was bad, so I had to swap out the screen too. So she has a mostly fully refurbished iPod, other than the main little motherboard or logic board or whatever it is on it. And she ended up really, really enjoying it. She has a phone that she would listen to streaming music and stuff on, but she prefers the iPod because there's no interruptions or notifications or ads or anything. And she was kind of amazed to learn that the iPod originally sold for hundreds of dollars for a device that, as she said, just plays music. So the past week or so that she was here, she spent probably most of her time listening to the iPod. So it was kind of a, I guess, bonding experience, or a good experience, to be able to share music and stuff with my daughter, and kind of get her interested in old technology, at least to some degree, and share some music and stuff with her. So I'd been doing that, and thinking about my kids getting older, and thinking about myself as I was that age, and my own upbringing in California, and just kind of the path of life from birth to where I'm at now. And I guess life decisions I've made, choices I've made, and where they've all ultimately brought me to at this point, I suppose. I'd left in the mid-2000s, and I essentially just looked at a bunch of data, sort of cost of living analysis of the 50 states, and compared them to California. And I kind of did that because at the time, I looked around in California. I had friends that were buying houses, starting lives early off in adulthood, and everything just was so expensive. In the mid-2000s, it was, in California, and we're talking about like Central Valley, around Sacramento, Stockton, or around that area. Like a starter home was $350,000, $400,000, $450,000. And I remember at the time just thinking, that's just too much money to get a 30-year loan on and try and work my way up some corporate ladder to be able to afford this. So I started trying to find alternatives for, could I live somewhere else and try and make my lot in life a little bit easier. And I ended up essentially moving to the central United States in the Midwest. And overall, the cost of living was quite a bit cheaper. And California itself, even at the time, had, I thought, excessive laws and regulations. And it just seemed very stifling to exist anywhere in California, try and do business, try and make money, try and pay taxes, and try and own anything. So moving to the Midwest at the time seemed like a good idea to reduce costs. And so that's what I did around the mid-2000s. And then I've spent almost the next 20 years here in the Midwest. And I guess ever since the pandemic now, there's sort of been a slow ramp up at first. Maybe a little bit prior to that. But if you go back to 2019, the cost of living here in the Midwest was quite a bit cheaper than what it is now. If you look around right now, here in the central part of the United States, I'm seeing home prices, utility bills, property taxes that all kind of reflect what I would have been fleeing in the mid-2000s in California. It's something like the median price of home sales, I think, last year and this year is somewhere around $400,000. But even here in the central U.S., if you look around, probably more major metropolitan areas, you're looking at 300, 350, 400, 450. I've seen some houses, bigger homes, newer construction, larger floor plans, well into the $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 range. I don't know who in the hell in the Midwest is buying $700,000 or $800,000 houses, other than maybe doctors and lawyers or professional athletes or something. But it does not seem like the median income is keeping up with the median cost of a house. So I'm not sure how a lot of people are making the math work on that. And then I've kind of been paying attention to what the Federal Reserve has been talking about, especially in this past year. I think they ended last year in December or started this year in January talking about doing multiple rate cuts. But if I'm not mistaken, they just had a recent meeting here, and there haven't been any rate cuts whatsoever to speak of. It looks like potentially in September there might be like a 0.25% rate cut. And then also here recently in the past couple of days, past few days, the stock market looks like it's kind of fallen off a little bit of a cliff here. And then I noticed, since I work in technology and we do deal pretty directly with CrowdStrike, I had noticed, first of all, we were affected by the CrowdStrike incident. Thankfully, not that big of a deal. Any major problems I personally had with it, the backup system that I had implemented, thankfully, was pretty good. So I was able to restore any things I had issues with from critical system stuff or whatever within a few minutes. I spent a couple of hours really kind of getting the worst of it dealt with, when the rest of the day kind of double checking work and making sure systems were interoperating and connecting to each other. But anyway, that's when I started noticing, after that particular event, the CrowdStrike stock price seemed to tank pretty sharply that day. And then it looks like the general stock market has kind of continued to fall in the past 2 or 3 days here.
Yeah.
Well, leading up to the weekend.
The thing is, it doesn't matter. People still make money.
And then
even
overall,
if
it looks like CrowdStrike has lost like 40%, 45% of their stock value at last checking. So just all this kind of stuff seems to be happening that I saw brewing in the early 2000s. We seem to be on the precipice of all this kind of economic turmoil again here. So I've just kind of been thinking about that stuff this week, and where I'm at in life, and how I've been feeling and stuff at work, and then how that kind of ties in with like a reflection of my youth and growing up, and then seeing that reflected in my own children kind of going through some of the same things of growing pains or whatever you want to call it. And then here I am.
Yeah, I haven't sold all my shit.
30 years later than my daughter in my mid-40s going through some sort of bizarre existential crisis again now at this point. But on top of that, I'd also, what kind of, that stuff sort of simmering in the back of my mind. And then also, I had read this. This is William Golding. If you're not familiar with Golding, he wrote, I guess, one of his more popular works is Lord of the Flies. And somehow I had come across this little essay or vignette or whatever you want to call it, Thinking as a Hobby by William Golding. And I had read this sometime in my teenage years, probably not right at 14, but it probably would have been 16 or 17. And sort of the main theme in Golding's Thinking as a Hobby is he kind of recounts his early years from grade school up into college or so, I guess you would say. And he kind of recounts different people he runs into, his headmaster, some teachers, a girl he's dating, and he kind of talks about how he develops this category for organizing people into 3 categories of thinkers, level 1, 2, and 3, and he starts categorizing people into what level of a thinker they are. Mm-hmm. But he also talks about these 3 statues. He talks about the Venus de Milo the statue, and the statue of a jaguar, and the statue of Rodin's Thinker. And he talks about how he sees these statues in his headmaster's office when he's a child, and how he kind of arranges these statues facing each other, or in a particular arrangement that he finds amusing through like the lens of his childhood self. And then at the end of it, the end of the little essay that he writes, he kind of reflects back at an older age, if he could go back to the headmaster's office, and if he could rearrange those statues now, he would arrange them in a way, if I'm remembering correctly, where Rodin's Thinker is looking at the Venus de Milo, and then the jaguar is posed as if it's ready to pounce and attack the thinker. So, if any of this makes any sense, the story at this point kind of makes me reflect back on my own life over time. Reevaluating experiences I've had and what they mean to me now, and what kind of influence they had on me initially, over time, and now again, looking back kind of through a glass darkly at your own life and decisions you've made, I've made, what I thought the course and path of my life would be, and instead what it's actually turned out to be, which is, you know, I guess in some way what I'm trying to get at is a lesson that's kind of been beaten back into me, especially over the past 4 or 5 years now, ever since the pandemic kind of started, I guess, is, you know, history doesn't repeat, it just rhymes. But I'm at this point now in my mid-40s where it feels like there's multiple things kind of simultaneously repeating. And I guess it's fair to say it's not an exact repetition of past events, but like, you know, seeing my children and their experiences that currently are like what my experiences were for them at the same age, I'm seeing that all over again through my own eyes, but living sort of vicariously through them now experiencing that point in their lives. And then again, with kind of economic stuff that is going on currently, it's kind of just a rehash of everything leading up to the, you know, global financial crisis that took place in the mid to late 2000s. I look around now, not only is the cost of housing at, I suppose, an all-time high, but interest rates are very high. So that kind of compounds that problem. I've noticed at work and in personal life, vendors, service providers, 10, 15, 20% increase on the same stuff we were buying just the previous year. There's more layoffs and stuff that looks like recession, but if you look at the news, nobody says the word recession. But I think it was just today or yesterday, the last couple of days somewhere, Intel announced a bunch of layoffs. And the tech sector, you know, the pandemic took off, everybody went to work from home, and there's this big boom in the tech sector. But now in the past couple of years, well, last year leading into this year, there's been more and more layoffs. and the economy just looks kind of worse and worse. So just sort of thinking about all that stuff, and then, in the mid-2000s, kind of my strategy was California looks like a sinking ship. I'll just get out now, go somewhere more affordable, and just be safe and isolated from all that kind of nonsense. But now the crazy thing is, fast forward almost 20 years, and the same thing that happened in California, and if you ask me, at least from my experience, in California, it was pretty bad. During the mid-late 2000s, the cost of living and stuff, crime rate, everything kind of went up, and I bailed out, went to the Midwest. If you would have asked me in the mid-late 2000s, it was like going back in time. Sure, some things were difficult. I know the Midwest was still impacted by foreclosures, and there are some job losses and stuff. And with the whole 2008-2009 auto crisis, there were still a number of auto manufacturers kind of offset from the Detroit area that would make car parts. I worked for one of them for a few years. They, in recent years, got closed out, and I believe all the manufacturing from those plants, the plant I used to work at, went to Mexico. So while there was some of that in the late 2000s, the Midwest was at least a little bit more insulated. At least my experience moving to the Midwest was kind of like going back in time. But I look around now, and everything I saw happening in California 20 years ago now looks like it is happening nationwide. It's affecting me here where I'm at in the Midwest. So to the point where groceries are, order of magnitude, it feels like order of magnitude more expensive than 4 or 5 years ago. $100 felt like a fairly decent amount of groceries, $150. Now, I don't even fill up a grocery cart with $100 worth of food. It's a few items. And it's nothing particularly extravagant. You get some fruits and vegetables, and it's $100. Huh? So I've been thinking about all that stuff this week, kind of how my strategy was just to move away from all the chaos, get away from the tidal wave of financial collapse. And now here I am 20 years later, and the tidal wave is here knocking at my door again. Yeah. So, unfortunately, I don't think I have any particularly spectacular intellectual insights or anything. I just wanted to kind of talk more about myself, where I came from. I grew up in what I would call Northern California, Sierra Nevada foothills. Kind of once, in my opinion, once you kind of get north of Sacramento, there's not a whole lot in California. I know Redding's there, Chico's there, Fort Bragg, Bodega Bay, but Woodland. But once you're sort of north of Sacramento, Woodland area, it is a lot of open area. So I'm from what I would call Northern California. And about 20 years ago, I moved to the Midwest to get away from the financial collapse. And here I am 20 years later, and it looks like no one in the news seems to be saying, global financial collapse or recession or anything. In fact, you turn on the news, They seem to tell you everyone's doing great, the economy's great, the economy's booming. I don't know where the economy's booming. If I look around locally here, it does not appear the economy is booming. I see physical stores closing. I see people shopping less. You know, the crazy thing is, I remember being a kid in the 80s and 90s, and when we would go Christmas shopping, still one of the most popular places to go Christmas shopping was like the mall, and they'd have the anchor tenants still at the mall, like Macy's, JCPenney's, Dillard's, whatever, these big department stores. And the mall itself would be huge, and then there'd be all the other individual stores. You could walk around the mall, do all your Christmas shopping. There'd be kiosks for video games. There'd be video game stores. Whatever it used to be, Funko Land, EB Games, GameStop, I think, was still there. But you could go in JCPenney's and buy video games. And there would be all these displays and all these electronics, and there would be crowds of people, crowds and crowds of people shopping for everything. Now, you go into a mall, if you can find a mall anywhere. There's a couple of malls where I live, and anytime you go into them, it's empty, or nearly empty. I'm amazed Barnes & Noble is still around at this point. Go into Barnes & Noble, and Barnes & Noble is empty. Which, you know, to some degree, I understand. I do the same thing. I shop for most anything these days, probably online more often than at a brick-and-mortar store. But you look around anywhere in the community, even in larger metro areas, and there seems to be less and less anywhere you go. And if you go outside the major metro areas, it's like most of the rural communities are kind of collapsing. Not all of them, but a whole lot of places, at least where I've been in the Midwest, and I've been to a number of states, essentially in the central United States. I've not been much in recent years over to the East Coast, but in the central U.S., a lot of the rural areas are just devoid of almost anything. And one thing I noticed is there seems to be a lot of brain drain. You know, the concept of like kids will go to college or university within their state. They'll graduate and then they'll, you know, all disperse somewhere and go to like New York, Washington, California, Florida or something. Texas is really popular now. And they'll all flee their home state. So you see a lot of population change over time, and you see all these smaller communities in the Midwest that used to have, you know, farming and agriculture is usually big, or that they would have some kind of industry or manufacturing stuff, and railroad would be big. You see all that stuff closing down and people just moving out, going somewhere else. So, I don't know. It seems like that stuff has kind of exacerbated over the past few years or so. So I'm kind of feeling a sense of, I guess, trepidation or whatever of what to expect, having seen this kind of lead up before in the past. You know, and if you look around at the market, I guess the stock market is technically kind of crashing right now, but you see overinflated stocks, overinflated home prices, overinflated car prices. At some point, you would think that bubble has to kind of burst, and then what happens? Are we going to have a collapse worse than, you know, 2006, 7, 8, 9? Is it going to be worse than that? Is it going to be better? Are there going to be major job losses? What's going to happen? It's an election year. So what are we going to get this year for the so-called October surprise? So yeah, that's it, I guess. Just my experiences over the past week, thinking about my own life and upbringing, and then seeing kind of experiences I had in life reflected through my own children kind of growing up now, and then the reflection of, the economy and finances and taxes and the monetary policy and everything kind of, I guess, looking like it's culminating in some sort of a perfect storm again. So we're going to have an issue in 2024, 2025, 2026, or what exactly is going to happen. But anyway, I guess that's probably all I have this week. Just me, alone in a dark room, talking to myself again. Hope you found some value or interest during this, or at least it amused, or something. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.
Well, I guess he's just another guy in the world that's starting to notice what's really going on. So many people are using social media to post what they noticed, the changes in the economy and all that. But the thing is, having an awareness of something is not the same thing as having the ability to do something about it. It's been my experience that I can be fully aware of all the spiritual aspects, at least in general, I wouldn't say too specific, but in general, of what's going on and why, and I still wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why I do not have control. Okay? Once you realize why you don't have control over this economy, this world, these people, how they think, what they value, etc., then it makes perfect sense at that point. It really does. But the thing is, like all things, you can consider it a challenge. Let's see. I think I cleared this place out. Well, no, I just did the outside, not the inside. I could do the other side too, but what I needed was the deer. I needed a couple of deer pelts on here. Let me see, did I get them? Deer hide, 2 of them. Okay, so I needed the deer hide. I'm going to make a backpack that's black. It's going to be less complicated than that. It won't give me the same bonuses as this one. I'll lose about 5 points of, about 10 points of magic, but I'll gain 5 points of carry weight, which is fine. I mean, I'm fine either way. But I don't want to have a brown backpack and then black everything else, pretty much. So, kind of weird that way. But anyway, we go ahead and get back over here. We'll go to Whiterun. Yeah, he's going. He's comparing $100 ain't shit. The only reason I went shopping and I only bought the bare minimum. And I walked out of there with $145, but I got stuff on sale. I used several coupons to get multiple items, because you buy 2 of the lunch meats you buy 2 of the lunch meats that I normally would buy anyway for lunch, right? Because I'm not vegetarian anymore. I went back to meat because meat is actually better for my diabetes than any kind of carb. But you get 2 of those and you get like 3 extra items, cheese, bread, and some little snacks for free. And so that saves you money. You're getting more items. So the only reason I have these extra items is simply because I had a coupon. Some of these things, like I bought those cheap steaks, those little thin cheap steaks for later on in the week, maybe Wednesday, Thursday. You know, what you do is you just put them on the thing and you cook. Well, the thing is, you know, they're normally like $7 or $8, and that's real cheap for 4 small steaks. You see, that's cheap. Over there, and where these guys live in California and all these other places, those same Milanesa steaks, you get 4 thin steaks, real thin ones, paper thin. So they cook pretty well and pretty quick. You get them probably for double that. But we're in Texas. It's a very big meat-eating state. Meat-eating state. And essentially at... excuse me. My bad. And essentially what you do is you're supposed to just save as much money as possible. When I go out shopping, I try to buy for a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I had overbought food from last time, meats and things like that also. So, but those are frozen. So as long as I have refrigeration, those will keep very well. And there's just all kinds of little things that I bought. I bought cookies, even though the cookies are bad for me. It's better than buying the muffins. Muffins are expensive, like $5 for 4 muffins. And even though that doesn't seem like a lot, it adds up. So instead, I'll have toast in the morning because you get more toast for a big loaf of bread. And I got lots of bread in there right now, which I shouldn't be eating, but I can have it in the morning. And the morning is usually when it's best. I had pizza earlier today, but I had it for lunch, and then I had it again for supper. And my feet are on fire, man. They're like all screwed up because I ate too much carb. As much as I love the pizza, I just have to use discipline. But anyway, right now, I mean, everybody's got to pretend they're living in college dorms. They have to pretend that they don't have the resources to go ahead and do what they want to do anymore. And they're feeling the hit. It's like, why are we working for if our money's not worth anything? What are we doing here? It doesn't make sense. So I decided just to go ahead and relax and do what I have to do. Okay, here it is. I want a black one. Huge knapsack, 100 points. Okay, so now what I'll do is apparel. Knapsack huge. So now it should look a lot better. You see? It's not all... I mean, if you're like dressed regular, this one will be fine. I mean, that's cool. Mage backpack. But it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. So if we're going to go stealth, go all the way. You know what I mean? There. See? There we go. See? That works out. That's dark enough. Because the Nightingale armor, as you can see, is not completely black. The cape is completely black. The hood is black. But everything else is kind of like a bluish hue. So it's not 100% black. It's just close. So anyway, I was going to get on my horsey and go check my thing over there. Let's see what I can do real quick. I'm just going to go to my Tundra. But anyway, going back to this gentleman, he makes several valid points, but it's just the internet is flooded with people who are making videos giving advice and making notice of the hard times. But the thing is, civilization has lived through a lot of hard times. We lived through the Black Plague. We lived through the COVID. Even though there's still COVID here and there, we still survived it. You know, I'm alive. My mom passed away, but she was really old. And I think it was retaliation for her bailing me out. I honestly do. Because the spirits on the other side, if you disobey the rules, you show compassion and you're not scheduled to do that, they get on your ass. It sounds silly, but that's the way they run this planet. They go according to an itinerary or a schedule or, you know, an agenda. And just like in a board meeting, you know, it's in your soul contract to suffer and wind up here or wind up there. You know, it's good to know that there was still mercy there, but I just thought it was funny that the woman that basically tortured me most of my life saved my bacon. You know, that's what happened. She saved my bacon. I was very thankful for that. You know, see that close up. Doesn't that look cool? It's so cool. Anyway, I'm trying to find Lydia. I think Lydia's somewhere.
Everything I could have hoped for.
Oh, it's the baby I adopted.
I know it's not much, but
Forgot about
I found
her.
a few pretty things. They're in the chest in my room. If you see anything you like, please take it.
Sure. Come over here for a second.
Mama!
Come close.
Oh! Hey! Did you need something, Mama? You got me a...
Let's see. Let's give you... that. And that.
You're the best. Thanks.
There we go. So you get like a little blessing or whatever when you give them stuff. Okay. So let's put some of this stuff away. I got so much shit. Yeah, it's so sad that it's come to this in this world where everything is just kind of falling apart. Hate to say. You don't really want to believe that, but that's just what it seems like to me. And I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see where I or a lot of these other people are wrong about this sort of thing. I don't know. I'll have to sell some shit that I have. Imperials. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it. I'm just gonna save it here and like this, and then I'll save it like this just to make a permanent record. And that's that. We did really good on this character. You know? Look at that. If I look at the skills, 484 magic, 300 health, stamina 135. And I've got a shitload of magic bonuses. Armor is maxed out. It's light armor. It doesn't weigh anything, not only because it's Nightingale, but because I have the ability to cancel out the weight. I earned that. But we go active effects, and I got the backpack, 100 points. Armor rating increased by 25 because it's a Nightingale full set. Destruction reduction by 50% right there. Fortified Magicka, about 120 points of magic. One-handed, I got one-handed times 3. So that's 40 times 3, about 120% one-handed. Persuasion, that's the gift of charity from giving to a child. All this other capacity comes from the bags and the little belts and stuff that I have on. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 regenerate healths. So that's 31% times 4. What is that? 124, I think. 31 times 4. 12. Yeah, I think it's like 124. But anyway, there it is, you know. And we got Regenerate Magicka. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's like 62 times 4. That's what? 120 plus 120. That's about 244, something like that. Yeah. And they got Regenerate Stamina, so I have a little bit of a boost on stamina. Magic skills improve 20. I need a better stone. I need to get a better stone that I could use. The apprentice stone sucks. I don't like having it. Yeah, I need something better than that. So, anyway, it's pretty good. I'm very happy with it. Very good character. Now, this is different because it's not the same as having a bow and arrow character where I can kill something over there by that. I can kill something from here all the way to where that house is. Even further if I aim proper. You know, here you have to go up, you have to aim and shoot, and these guys wiggle all over the fucking place, as you guys saw. They're just all over the place. So, okay, well, thanks for watching. Let's go back to the gentleman beforehand. Thank him right there. And his name's Rad Mage. Let's see. He looks like a gamer that's into technology. Yeah, he's into games. Final Fantasy. I never liked Final Fantasy, but I'm very picky when it comes to games. I'm very, very picky. And that's that. Alright, well, have a good night, and thank you for watching. You take care. Bye-bye.